and you were Director of Decarbonization, covering hydrogen and carbon capture there. Siri Crouch, now an independent consultant focused on carbon capture and storage, but Siri spent over 30 years, we won't put the finite number on it, over 30 years at Shell. The last 5 years of that were as VP and Global Head of Carbon Capture and Storage for Shell. But you have been in the sector and around the sector for a bit longer than those 5 years, and Siri is one of a small handful of people who's actually taken a carbon capture and storage project from conception all the way through to production with Quest in Canada. So, with that and that introduction, I am going to just, we're in the wrong order. There we go. I'm not going to read directly to slides, but we'll just have them in the background for a little bit of reference. But I'm going to hand over to you, Chris, because as we can see here from the graph on the left, 35% of emissions in Ras Al Khaimah come from heavy industry, hard to abate sectors, a few in particular. Now, clearly carbon capture, your vision is carbon capture provides a solution for that. So maybe do you want to just talk us through that a little bit and how carbon capture fits into that decarbonization?
Thanks, Michael, for the introductions. The carbon capture is an important part of the future of Ras Al Khaimah, partly because the industry that is there today has enabled what we see around us. It is built the UAE, the cement industry, the ceramics industry, the glass industry. All of these are key industries that has provided the success. To ensure that we have future success in Ras Al Khaimah, we need to find solutions for these businesses to stay there, to be successful. And therefore, as you can see by the graph, 33%, 35% corrected, is actually from hard to abate industries. So it's a segment that's 5.5 million tons of CO2 per year, which we need to find a way to abate to make sure we're meeting our greenhouse gases. So we're partnering with cement industries, with the glass industry and the ceramic industries to tackle that. And as we'll continue the conversation there, you'll see that we found a very novel solution in Ras Al Khaimah and in the UAE that we can drive and see that. Part of my job is to make sure we put the frameworks, the structures, and regulation in place.
Thanks, Chris. So, Mohammed, I think we want to get into the industry. We want to get your expertise on this. So,
yes,
tell us about. First of all, tell us a little bit about the cement industry in Iraq, because it's got a big piece within the history of Ras Al Khaimah, and then and it's clearly a big piece of the economy today. So talk us about that and the challenges you see for decarbonization.
Yes, as you know, the cement industry started in UAE at Ras Al Khaimah. It was 1972, and as in today, 50% of the cement produced by Ras Al Khaimah, in Ras Al Khaimah area. Why Ras Al Khaimah? Because 97% of the material required for cement is available in Ras Al Khaimah area. Mainly, we have Hajar Mountain, which is started from the Oman till the Hormuz Channel. And for cement, mainly, you need limestone. And quite 80 to 85% of the requirement for making cement available quite 500 meters from these factories. Yes, we are in the north part, not in the south, but it is quite very near area. Really, we need this solution as soon as possible because we need to export. This is the solution. As you know, we are producing more than our demand. We have more than 23 integrated plants. We are producing in UAE more than 23 million tons of cement at UAE, while our demand hardly between 8 to 10 million. So the solution of capturing carbon and storage is the solution for the cement future.
Okay. Now, Pavan, Mohammed talked about it being the future for cement. It's almost the present for some plants with Wholesome. Now, you've been part of that strategy, developing that and executing upon that, and that's globally. Can you maybe just give us a little bit of an overview of where you are, where Wholesome are when it comes to capturing the carbon from the production, and if you see an opportunity for that here in Ras Al Khaimah?
Let me just quickly add on to the question that you asked, Mohammed, right? So everyone says that cement is hard to abate. Let me just give you why. If you want concrete is the second most used material on earth after water. And we're going to be building equivalent of New York City every month for the next 40 years. So the demand for concrete and cement will only increase. And for power, you have renewables. You can use renewables and decarbonize. For cement, CCUS is absolute must. If you want to produce concrete and cement, you need to use limestone. Limestone contains CO2. You heat it up to 1400 degrees, you emit CO2. So if you want concrete, it comes with CO2. And then that is a challenge which we have. That is why it is really hard to decarbonize without CCUS. And that brings to Wholesome. We are taking the leadership role in decarbonizing our operations through CCUS. We have committed to net zero on Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3 before 2030. And we have 123 million tons of emissions across 3 scopes. Out of that, 45% of my emissions, I can only decarbonize using CCUS. There's no other option. Even if I use hydrogen, even if you use waste, even if I use any other sources, 44% of my emissions can only be decarbonized using CCUS. And that has to be across 90 plants globally. So between now and 2050, I'm the pleasure of deploying 90 plus CCUS units across the globe. And I'm not sure whether you're aware, the cost of cement is 5 US cents in UAE and 10 US cents in Europe. It is one of the lowest value product. And how do you make a business case using CCUS when it's going to cost a lot of money is critical. It's really the challenging task. Luckily, we have committed to investing 2 billion Swiss francs before 2030. We would have 6 plants operating with CCUS in Europe, capturing 5.1 million tons, producing 8 million tons of net zero cement in Europe.
Thanks, Pavan. Now, Siri, you, as I said, you've been around this space for a long time, and you know, Shell is no small company. Big strategy which you helped write for CCS, but it's not just about carbon capture. You've looked at every aspect of this industry and the adjacent sectors. That is my iPad. That's my iPad reacting to me saying Siri, so apologies for that. Happens on a daily basis. So there's other opportunities that can be combined. So Pavan mentioned hydrogen. It's not the answer to decarbonizing entirely, but hydrogen, whether it's green or blue, is a big solution for a lot of industries. How does having a CCS industry facilitate the production of low carbon or zero carbon hydrogen?
So for me, indeed, I've worked a lot with the hard-to-abate sectors, including the cement one, but actually other hard-to-abate sectors, steel, you name it. But actually, for me, the whole thing here is if you get a working CCS hub, it's how can you use that for other elements, and how can you use it to enable the energy transition? And so indeed, you mentioned hydrogen. So you can do blue hydrogen. In this case, actually, there's a case where you're looking at white or gold hydrogen as well, which I'm sure we'll come to later. But the other piece is DAC, direct air capture. Direct air capture is where you go into removals. Rather than taking it from emission sources, you actually say, no, I'm going to remove it from the air. Interestingly enough, the session before this was waste to energy. and waste removal. Well, actually, I'm working a lot in the UK and in Europe with CCS on waste-to-energy plants, because then again, you can get to negative emissions. And all of these are going to be required, and all of them can either use CCS to get to zero, or like I've mentioned, to bring in the negative credits. And with the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere at the moment, and fossil CO2, then actually some of those negative credits are also going to be used and required to help us reach the climate targets.
Great. So, Chris, let's talk a little bit about the process. Tell us maybe, first of all, where this will happen in the UAE or within Iraq, and tell us about why Ras Al Khaimah is particularly advantaged.
So in Ras Al Khaimah, we're very lucky to have different rock structures. In the northern Ras Al Khaimah, we have rocks that enable us to have the quarries for the cement industry. In the southern part, as you can see where the purple area is an ophiolite rock. This is a deep mantle rock that's been brought to the surface over 80 million years ago. And during that 80 million years, Mother Nature's laboratory has been processing and capturing carbon as the rainwater takes the CO2 down through the rock structures. It starts to form a carbonate rock, a white. I like to call it almost, if you pick up the rocks, you see it looks like a Wagyu steak. You see these veins running through the rock, and that's the CO2 being mineralized in the rock. So we have reference, nature has been doing it for some time. We have some other reference cases around the world that have been working on this for a number of years. So it works. The challenge for us now is in the southern part of Iraq is doing it at pace and at scale that can fulfill the requirements and meet the objectives of our industry within Ras Al Khaimah. As you can see up there, it's only 90 kilometers from where we're sitting today, so it's very close to Dubai. And also to the heavy industry in Ras Al Khaimah, it's less than 50 kilometers. So from that point of view, we are well positioned to start dealing with and working towards a successful project that will provide a solution for the UAE.
Thanks, Chris. Siri, carbon storage, or capture and storage, is not new. It's been around for many, many decades. Mineralization is new. Now, you've had a lot of experience with CCS, with depleted fields, with saline aquifers. Tell us just a little bit how this, this new pioneering technology, if you like, of mineralization just differs, and whether that's time frame, liability, excuse me, permanence.
So I think the key thing here is indeed what you see on the slide is that actually you're combining olivines in the ophiolite complex with carbon dioxide to create serpentine or serpentinite and calcium carbonate. That's very different. When you're talking about saline aquifer storage, what you're doing is you're injecting it into a saline aquifer. You're pushing water in front of you. It is very much a normal reservoir, just like an oil or gas reservoir. And the CO2 stays in its natural form, if you like, for a much longer period of time. Mineralization will happen, but it happens over geological time rather than this one, which can happen in a much shorter time frame. This isn't that new. For those of you who are working in the CO2 field, Carbfix in Iceland has been utilizing this method actually to do carbon dioxide removals in that sense. It's a slightly different format because they're doing it in basalts rather than ophiolites, but the concept is very similar. And I think the key thing here is because it turns to rock, the MMV and what you have to put in place to assure people it is different. And actually, it also means that once it is mineralized, you do not have a mobile CO2 plume that you have to be concerned about. So in theory, you could have conversations about liability, handover times, etc. Now, that also plays out back to the emitters because potentially it means that you can build that into your commercial constructs that you write with emitters, but actually also with the regulatory authorities in terms of what they have to take into account to make sure the legislation and regulations are there going forward.
That's great, thank you. Now, to Pavan and to Mohammed, I'm just going to go back to the map. We've illustrated some cement plants or sort of industrial units. Now, Mohammed, the cement, they're in clusters, the cement plants. Two, is that correct, you think you said?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the cement, they are in the north side, and but the area selected where we have now the serpentine and the affiliate rock, it is in the middle of UAE. You can involve not only Ras Al Khaimah cement companies, you can also involve the other sectors, and it will help. In the beginning, maybe as a pilot study, we can involve Ras Al Khaimah because this is Ras Al Khaimah entity, but I believe it will be a future for all the sectors, even feeders.
And so just following off that, so Pavan, with all of the projects that you're now looking at, does it help to have, if you like, this cluster approach to aggregate volumes to create that economies of scale? Because these are, the storage as well as the capture, they're very CapEx intensive, right?
So what is exciting about this one is not only the clustering, but also the distance between the emitting and then storing. I think if I recall correctly, it's around 50 kilometers, right? So let's take an example of some of my plants. I have a plant in Austria. Austria does not allow at this moment onshore CO2 storage. If I capture the CO2, I need to put it in a train, send it 1,500 kilometers to Rotterdam, pay for the terminal there to process my CO2, put it in a ship, send another 700 or 800 nautical miles to Northern Lights, pay the Northern Lights to store my CO2. So each time I'm adding the interfaces, the cost of the CCS value chain, the capture, transport, and storage, it's so prohibitively expensive that there's no business case for me. Here, all I have is 60 kilometers or 50 kilometers of pipeline, which I need to do. And the other element is each of the cement facility generally produce 700,000 to 1 million tons of CO2. If I have to build a pipeline for, say, 100 kilometers with 1 million ton of the CO2, the cost is going to be prohibitively expensive. All of a sudden, if I combine my volumes with much bigger volumes from other emitters, dollar per ton for transportation is going to be much cheaper. So cheaper transportation cost, shorter distances, and because of all the benefits that Siri mentioned, that the OPEX is going to be, we assume that OPEX is going to be conditionally lower than anywhere else because there's no liabilities, there's no MBV. So that is what excites us about this opportunity.
Well, Chris, I'm going to put it back to you. So you made an announcement of an MOU that was signed with a developer. How do you see this coming together?
We are extremely excited by the technology that Decahydron is bringing to the table for us. The key differentiator that we're focusing on for this project, not only just the rocks and the location, which makes it a low cost, but it's a low water injection methodology we're going for. So we're going for a critical CO2 injection, so liquid CO2 into the rock structure that accelerates it. It enables further fracturing of the rock. It's quite a brittle rock, so it fractures and enables more surface contact for the CO2. And that's where we're hoping to see some economies of scale, where we're gathering from multiple plants of CO2, but also the fact that we don't have to create a lot of water. We're not having to risk damaging aquifers with injecting water. Plus, with the knowledge we have in our upstream activity in the traditional hydrocarbon space, we're using our geology team, geoscience team, and our well engineering team to make sure we put the right well structures in place to protect the rock structures. Because here in the UAE, we need to be very careful around how we manage all of our wells, regardless of the nature of them. So for us, as the regulator, working with all of our partners and working with Decahydron, we're ensuring we have the right regulation and the right structures in place to support not only a low-cost investment, but an ethical and safe investment.
Okay, that's great, Chris. Thank you. And I'm just thinking in terms of, Mohammed, in terms of GCC, thinking about, if you like, the route to market for this. Are you thinking in terms of competitive exports, like a green product. So we've got grey cement, white cement. Now we're going to have a green cement, or a green white and a green grey. Or are you thinking about generating, is it credits, or is it that the decarbonization goes towards the UAE decarbonization commitments? How do you see this when it comes to your industry?
Yes, as you know now, the cement factories, they are looking for the export. And the market in surrounding area is quite the same price, which is you cannot compete. But you have to cross the ocean, and you have to, you can say, you have to produce to America standards at the moment. Now, all the market in UAE, all the cement producers are looking to the American market. And to reach there, you have to have, or you have to apply with their standards, which is ASTM, and one of the requirements is CO2 emission. Then it will come, I know it is not applied till now. They are not asking for this, but in the soon future, they may ask. And I believe this is the future. If we have secure, and if you have capacity which can inject all our emission, because as you said, 1 million ton, it quite produce 1 million ton of CO2. Yes, 60% is coming from the raw material, and 40%, 35 to 40% is coming from the process. We work a lot in the process, yes, by adding with the MOCA, introducing AFR, alternative fuels. We introduce a new system called capturing the heat and doing some electricity, green electricity, but that one is not enough. Mm-hmm. Still, we are quite in 700 and between 700 to 800 kilogram per ton of cement. We need to work a lot because Europe is ahead. They're already in between 500 and 600. We have to beat them, and we have at least to be in their range.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
So I'm conscious of time, so Chris, I just want to, I think they've messed with my slide order here, but I'll go back to it. I just want to close it down. We're just thinking about some next steps, but then also for Pavan and Siri to chime in maybe with some lessons that maybe you could bear in mind. But so you talked about thinking about the regulatory framework, getting that in place. What are the next steps and the next actions for you, and even thinking about opportunities for investors to explore this opportunity with you?
So the first thing we're doing is engagement. So earlier this week, we had an engagement session where we brought all stakeholders, legal representatives, the cement industry, other regulators, other projects around. I think it was the first time where I've been involved, where every CO2 capture project in the UAE was represented in the room. So I think that's an important step for us, is learning from others, getting feedback on what our customers and our key stakeholders see are key challenges for themselves. What are some of the key challenges we're learning from other projects? And therefore, what is the right regulation that not only meets the Emirates and the UAE's objectives around its 2050 targets, but also creates a sustainable, cost-effective solution for those consumers. So we're not passing on huge amount of costs to the ultimate end consumer. So we have a very engagement, and that process we will continue. Every quarter we're looking at having another roundtable to sort of get up to speed. Where are we now? Get further input, get further ideas, and then keep developing that regulation framework. And we're partnering with the various ministries in the UAE to make sure that we have a sort of national alignment on these projects as well. Okay.
Well, you've got the opportunity to get some advice and tips from two people here. Both with Shell experience, but with multiple project experience. Probably if we counted the capture and storage projects that you have both been involved in, it's well into the multiple double digits. So maybe Siri, if there was one thing that you would say that needs laser focus at this early stage from a storage perspective, what would you say to Chris?
So for me, if we're going to do this, and we're going to do it, and we're going to enable the customers to also put this into the global market and to position themselves as a lower carbon product, etc., then it's making sure that we have the right MMV in that sense. It's the ability to actually show what the carbon intensity is, how we've reduced that carbon intensity, and to make sure that you can put that into the whole perspective. That enables them to label their products and position them into that global market. So for me, that MMV plan, absolutely key. But it also does something else other than that. It actually brings your stakeholders with you, because it shows them that you're thinking about it, that you're looking at the HSE requirements, and therefore you're operating it in a very safe manner. And I think making sure that, you know, the local stakeholders, you're protecting groundwater, you're protecting their other natural resources through that, absolutely critical. And then finally, it's actually coming back to you as a regulator. It's that when it is time to close a site and close the storage, you have the information you require to know that it has been stored safely, the CO2 is properly contained, and therefore you are comfortable to take over that ownership and liability at that point in time. All of those things mean that, for me, the MMV plan, absolutely key.
Well, my MMV plan is about to close me down because I know that we're out of time. So if they're going to afford me 30 seconds, thank you. Pavan, I want in 15 seconds, because I'm going to let Chris have the last word. 15 seconds, if you like, as a emitter customer. What are your final words here?
I am excited about the export opportunity because producing zero carbon cement will provide access to European market when the cement price is going to be 150 to 200 euros starting 27 to 30. But I'm really would like to sell and compete in UAE market as well. If there are low carbon building material standards in UAE, then I need to be able to cater to that. The only way I can be able to do that is with carbon capture. So we hope that there is going to be a carbon price in UAE, or at least the low carbon building standards, so that we not only produce zero carbon cement for export businesses, but also contribute to UAE's growth and UAE's meeting UAE's net zero targets as well.
Okay, great. Thanks, Pavan. So, Chris, final word before they shut us down.
First of all, thank you, Michael, for hosting today. We have the partnership with yourselves that is helping us, guide us with the regulation, the economic models, working with our various partners. So it's very exciting by what we're doing here today. And I think we're on a journey with, first of all, the Decahydron pilot project, which is looking to be available in the next 2 years. So it's quite exciting that we're fast-tracking. And then seeing what other investors, what other infrastructure requirements we need to basically hook up the various emitters and then reach our goals. So thanks everybody for your participation. Michael, thank you for hosting.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.